What is up, everybody? It's your boy Rogue here. So, there's a post going online in Zodiac Duelist that I saw that inspired this video, and it pretty much talked about Riftbound will be taking over the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, and I'm here to say why that will never happen, and honestly, real talk, why Yu-Gi-Oh! Will never die. Now, as a disclaimer, I've made tons of videos on this channel discussing the end of Yu-Gi-Oh!, how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying, and why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying. And I never really get a full picture. And that's not because I wasn't trying to. I assume people will be able to use common sense to say, okay, this dude isn't going the game, this dude's not saying the game will completely die, but at the same time, he understands where the game is headed. Now, like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that frustrates the hell out of a lot of people. One of the biggest reasons people like myself say Yu-Gi-Oh! Is dying, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a dead game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be a dead game if Konami don't get their shit together, is simply due to the fact that the game is not growing as far as on a kid level, and I ain't gonna lie, on a female level. There's not a lot of female duelists. Now, you guys might be saying, hey, why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal in the long run of growth. When women enter hobbies, a lot of dudes hate it, but you gotta admit, a lot of dudes do appreciate when girls enter the hobby because, let's be honest right now, people are online dating. A lot of people would prefer to meet people in their said hobby. But let me get back on topic real quick and target the whole why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not completely dying. Because outside of my reason on why I think the game is on a decline, I still truly believe that as far as on a competitive level, as far as the modern version of it, Yu-Gi-Oh! As a property would never completely die, simply due to the fact that it's a first. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is lightning in a jar, essentially. Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out 1996 or 9 in Japan and 2002 in America when I got into it, obviously. And it was, like I said, lightning in a bottle. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably one of the first card games to go mainstream. Yes, there was Magic the Gathering. Yes, there was a pro league. It was really competitive. I think it was even on ESPN back in the day. But what Yu-Gi-Oh! Did for us millennials blew everything out of the water. Everything for you guys that don't remember or just don't know. People may argue, well, Chris, Pokemon had the resurgence back in the day, which led to what they are now. And that's true. Pokemon did have a competitive scene. They did have the Pokemon card boom. But I'd argue, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had a bigger impact than Pokemon on the card game world. Pokemon, what it did for Americans at least, or people outside of America, that's outside of Japan, it introduced people to collectible card games for a younger generation. Generations prior to us all played mainly like they collected like sports cards and things like that. And Pokemon gave us another aspect. Let's be real, none of us when we were kids, I'm gonna say a majority of us never really truly learned how to play Pokemon trading card game. Unless you bought the Game Boy like me, then it was different. But then again, back in the 90s, a lot of us kids wasn't, unless you were in a suburban area that had locals that hosted Pokemon and you were really about that life, that wasn't a majority of kids back in the day. Majority of kids went to their school, they played with no rules, similar to how kids did with Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's how we got what we have now with everything moving fast forward into the future. And when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out, what made a difference was it gave us kids, back in the day, a way to see how a card game can be competitive, how Yu-Gi went to tournaments. The Battle City arc is still one of the most goated card game arcs of all time because of everything from the Scylla recalcos to watching Joey trying to win a prize money for her sister. I mean, there's tons of other things I can talk about on what made Yu-Gi-Oh! Popular and what blew up card games into the mainstream. Now, obviously, Pokemon has over the years overtaken Yu-Gi-Oh! Due to the balance of their card game. Some people argue the game is kind of boring. I haven't played it in years. However, from what I am told, people do enjoy Pokemon. It's a different skill set than Yu-Gi-Oh, but both skill sets transfer over into real life if you ask me, because I've played other card games like the Naruto, CCG, and etc. So not only, in my opinion, that Yu-Gi-Oh make card games more mainstream, especially here in America, because Pokemon was looked at as like the kid game. Yu-Gi-Oh was the edgy teenager kind of game. Like I said, you had your Magic players. Magic players been here for a while. But like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like a lot of people, especially the millennial generation, introduction to card games. And that moved a lot of us in different directions. Like I said, I quit Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I was younger for multiple things. Like at first it was Beyblade when I was a preteen. Then during my high school years, I briefly quit I dabbled in the Pokemon trading card game. Got heavily into Naruto. You guys already know my story on that. If you haven't, look up my video remembering Naruto CCG. I'm a former pro in that game. And then when I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh, tons of card games was already out and thriving around the time. We had Battle Spirits, we had Magic was booming. A lot of millennials were getting into Magic at this time. We've had Pokemon, the card game, just grow in popularity. This is before the whole COVID hype with the whole everyone trying to be an influencer. People was buying, collecting, and competing in Pokemon video game tournaments as well as card game tournaments. But what Yu-Gi-Oh has done consistently is bring that edge to the card game world, and I will stand on that hill. Magic was always considered a boring old man game. Pokemon was always looked at as the kid, family friendly game, but Yu-Gi-Oh had an edge that no other game had back then, which is why it's so popular till this day. Now you guys may be thinking, Chris, what the hell does this have to do with Yu-Gi-Oh not dying? The game is not growing like you said. There's no kids into it. There's no chicks into it. It's just pretty much having the same old players cycling in and out of the game for years. Here's the answer. Yu-Gi-Oh's not dying because the players won't let it die. When players was fed up, like a lot of boomers like myself who hate modern Yu-Gi-Oh, was fed up, guess what they developed? Go format. Guess what else they developed? Edison format. And those formats were so freaking popular, Konami had to step in and slap people on the hand and tell them to play their official formats. And I don't know if they rearranged that recently on how they do it for the local scene, but when Edison was getting super popular, Konami stepped in recently before I took a hiatus from Yu-Gi-Oh! And said, no, if you want to play your Edison, you can't have an OTS. We'll strip your status. And that made a lot of people look at Konami like, what the hell are you guys doing? We already barely want to play the modern game. At least let us enjoy our card game on a local level and do what we want to do. Now, they kind of retracted that and went back and forth, but it was kind of really messy and it rubbed a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players the wrong way, which a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to One Piece. Like me, I said, I'm going to Beyblade, etc., etc., etc. Speaking of Beyblade, the reason why I bring it up is because I see how in that community, how the players never let a spin top game die. It's the reason why Beyblade X is probably one of the most popular hobbies of 2025, going to 2026. And if you go on TikTok, you type in Beyblade X, whatever, and there's tons of videos, way more viral than from what I've seen in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, just of people kicking and having a good time enjoying Beyblade because it's a simpler game. But the reason why Beyblade is so popular, the players didn't let the Beyblades die. This is a tier 0 Beyblade, by the way. The players did not let the Beyblade game die. They played it for years, even before the new things came out. And Beyblade kind of has the same comparable passion in Yu-Gi-Oh players. But the thing about that is, if people wouldn't let a spin top game die and grow into a new era, I can only imagine if Konami stopped supporting Yu-Gi-Oh and said, hey, we're done. It's been real sayonara. Tons of Yu-Gi-Oh independent leagues that come up. And I ain't gonna lie, if that happens, we would definitely see a Yu-Gi-Oh a renaissance, that is, because once Konami eventually do step out the picture and say, hey, what's done is done. We're not making no money off this game for real. Hosting YCS is a negative in our department. We got to downsize. We're done with Yu-Gi-Oh! Completely. There's going to be so many leagues like Pro Play Games and people who did the ARG stuff from back in the day. Tons of people like that stepping up to the plate and holding legit cash prizing that we've always wanted and moving forward with the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG as a hobby, similar to how people did in the Beyblade community. Because in the Beyblade community, when before Beyblade X was a thing, people were still hosting tournaments. Now they were localized to like anime conventions, but Yu-Gi-Oh is a more popular hobby than Beyblade at this time. So I can definitely see if Beyblade, if Yu-Gi-Oh ever decide to quote unquote really die, as far as like, they're not gonna sell a product anymore. The community will carry the game moving forward, and that's really based on the history of the game that I gave you guys to this day. So, with all that being said, do you guys think Yu-Gi-Oh ever truly died? Like I said, when I make my Yu-Gi-Oh dying videos, like it comes from a place of passion, but I know deep down inside the game is never really gonna die. It has too many players playing it, and at the very least, people will still play it locally and host their own individual tournaments, keeping the game Yu-Gi-Oh alive, even when Konami stops printing sets. So to answer the question at the beginning of the video, will Riftbound kill Yu-Gi-Oh? No. Riftbound can't kill Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if it outsells Yu-Gi-Oh! Because the player base of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so dedicated to the game because it's lightning in a jar. Yu-Gi-Oh! Picked card games, competitive card games on the map. The fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the #1, it'll never truly die. It'll just evolve into a different form and it's up there under Magic as a granddaddy of card games, in my opinion. So yeah, man, let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comment section down below. Like this video if you're new here. Let me know. Also, one last thing I want to talk about. One last thing. For people who are saying we're bound to kill Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has stood the test of time. Like I said, if Konami ever stopped selling Yu-Gi-Oh!, the players will carry it on his back. Games, I've seen tons of card games come and go that are brand spanking new, that are really hot, that are probably better than Yu-Gi-Oh! Gameplay wise. But when those games die, they may have a few people who brush off their decks for old time's sake. I'm talking about the Naruto CCG right here. But people would not continue to go to tournaments year after year after year for older card games like they would for Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, and Magic. Those would be the big three, and probably until the day I die, moving on. Unless card games unless we just have a big culture shock that just makes card games null and void and makes it the old man thing. And even then, we see how a lot of old heads that's older than me, I'm in my mid-30s, love chess. I can see Yu-Gi-Oh! One day just being like a chess-esque game where people just playing and enjoying their times from the early 2010s and the early 2000s. Anyway, man, it's your boy Rogue here, and I'm signing out. Peace. See you guys in the next video, whenever that is. Peace.